like to ask the Tánaiste and Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment if he would update the House on the forthcoming increase to the national minimum wage and make a statement on the matter. Thank you.
We want to reward work and ensure the work pays more. Minimum wage workers are among the hardest working people in Ireland and deserve to be paid appropriately, particularly at a time of rising prices. In September, the Government agreed to accept the Low Pay Commission's recommendation to increase the national minimum wage by 80 cents to €11.30 an hour from the 1st of January 2023. At least 164,000 people will benefit, but we think many hundreds of thousands more will benefit too, because of the knock-on increases that those on slightly higher pay will get. It works out at roughly €30 a week, or €120 a month, or €1,664 a year for a person in full-time employment. Ireland has a well-established system for setting the minimum wage based on the Low Pay Commission, and it's a system that works well. As the Deputy is aware, I want to move from a national minimum wage to a national living wage. Following Government approval in November, I announced the introduction of a national living wage for employees. This will be benchmarked at 60% of hourly median wages, in line with the recommendations of the Low Pay Commission. It will be phased in over a 4-year period, running to 2026. The new agreed national minimum wage of €11.30 an hour from the 1st of January is in line with this transition, and therefore next year can be considered the first year of the proposed 4-year path towards reaching a living wage of 60% of median earnings, or median wages. The introduction of the living wage is the latest in a series of improvements made to workers' rights in the last 2 years. These include statutory sick pay, the protection of tips and service charges, a new public holiday, and the work-life balance legislation currently going through the Dáil.
Tánaiste, and I want to congratulate you on your period in the office that you're holding at the moment, on the substantial increases that you've made to the rights of workers and the conditions of workers. And I think we've all learned, been informed so much by COVID on the opportunities to work differently and to work in better ways. And this is, I think, a really significant and important part of that. And I think it's, as you say, it's essential that work does pay, and that we're incentivising work at every turn for everybody in the labour market, irrespective of what they're earning. And I visited the Dublin Chamber recently, and they still say that, notwithstanding, obviously we have an unemployment at historically low figures, and but obviously the single biggest issue for them at the moment is labour market shortages, and trying to encourage more and more people to this market and to work in this market. I was down speaking with the Family Business Network in Kilkenny recently, and again they employ over 1 million people in this state and 173,000 different family businesses, more than the state and foreign business put together, they tell me, and they are uniquely focused on the cost of jobs and the cost of creating jobs. And I might come back to that in supplementary.
Thanks very much. Just wanted to thank the Deputy for her remarks, and I hope that in times to come people will look back on this government as one that has made a lot of strides forward in terms of improving terms and conditions for workers. At a time when employers find it hard to recruit and retain staff, I believe that better terms and conditions and better pay must be part of the solution. So we are moving towards a living wage. Auto-enrolment, which has been spoken about for a very long time, becomes a reality in 2024. So people in the private sector in particular will now have an occupational pension to top up their state pension in the way that those in the public sector and the big companies do. Sick pay is a reality from the 1st of January, a new public holiday in February, and the legislation that's being brought through on work-life balance and remote working, I think, is a good step forward too. And this builds on reforms like paternity benefit, enhanced maternity benefit, restoration of treatment benefit that we've seen in previous years. And it is all about making work pay and rewarding people for the work that they do, which we believe will help to build a better society.
Thank you, Tánaiste. And a key part of that better society is continued low unemployment, continued employment opportunities, and obviously the opportunity to derive exchequer returns from PAY and people paying tax. But one of the key parts around incentivising people into the labour market, and again the cost of creating jobs, is looking at taxation, both the peer cost of PRSI, and I would reject any attempts to try and increase employers' PRSI by any political party in this House, but in fact to look at measures around temporary reductions in PRSI, if that were suitable, to try to support businesses as they try to continue to create jobs, to support the Irish economy, and more importantly to support people in the Irish economy, but also to look again at the marginal rates of personal taxation, which the OECD has said recently high marginal rates of personal taxation may continue to constrain entrepreneurship, as well as attracting entrepreneurial labour from abroad. And obviously we have very high personal taxation rates, marginal tax rates relative to other jurisdictions. And I would ask again, as the Family Business Network have done, who employ so many people in this state, contribute 19 billion to the Exchequer, that we look again at marginal tax rates and try to push out the rate at which people hit the marginal €50,000.
Thanks, Deputy. I think the fact that people pay the highest marginal tax rate in Ireland at such modest incomes is very unfair. That improves. Next year you'll be able to earn up to €40,000 without paying that highest rate of income tax, and you only pay the highest rate of income tax on income earned above 40,000. But if you look at Ireland across the OECD and across Europe, Irish workers pay much the same amount of income tax as other workers do, but the distribution is different, and people on relatively modest incomes pay the highest rate, and that is very unfair. You'd have to hit £120,000 sterling, I think, in Britain before you pay their highest rate of 45%. And yes, somebody on 40,000 would pay that here. I know it's not an exact comparison, but I think the House will get the point. So we do want to increase that threshold. Like the Deputy, I would be reluctant to increase employers' PRSI, but there are circumstances under which we would consider it, particularly if it meant the introduction of new benefits. And one of the things Minister Humphreys is working on at the moment is the possibility of pay-related benefits, maybe things like subsidised childcare, subsidised healthcare, but wouldn't like to see it happen unless it was linked to real benefits for workers and even benefits for employers as well.